Hello, everybody. This will be Chapter 3 Presentation. As before, I will go through all the pages first. You will notice that this time I'm testing new colors out. The light blue is the color of the text. The dark red is the reference number. And when we get to the references part, the text of the references is yellow, and the name of the authors and the references, like Herodotus or Pausani, it's bold and in green color. Green color? Was it green? I think it was green. We'll find out. This chapter has 13 pages. It will take me a while to read it all, but it is also worth it, because this chapter is about the Pelasgian graves, and it will pretty much connect a lot of question marks from around the world that we still have today. Like, hint hint, the Native American earth mounds. As always, I will have a follow-up analysis video, and I will look closely at all these associations that shouldn't exist, right? Because what we're told today is that many cultures develop separately from each other. And if there's any similarities in those cultures, it's pure coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence. And we shall see. Oh, okay. So the number itself, dark red, which points to the reference. The yellow text is the text of the reference. I figured it'd be easier to see. And the light blue highlighted names are the names of the authors and their work where the reference was taken from. Yes. If you think this is a better look, let me know. If you have seen chapter 1 and 2, and now this, let me know. I'm curious if anyone's actually looking at this, because this information in this book, I'm not sure I've made it clear enough just how important it is. It connects everything. Everything. Some random Romanian guy from 100 years ago that no one's ever heard of connected everything. It's just crazy. If you're wondering how long it took me to make this translation and assemble this presentation, I would say 30 to 40 hours. It's not easy what I'm doing, and the hardest part of it all is that I am not a fluent speaker in Romanian in the sense that my vocabulary is very limited. What makes it even more difficult is that this style of speaking from 100+ years ago, it's not the same style today. So when I look at word definitions today, many of the Romanian words are not even part of the Romanian vocabulary anymore. And this is due to the fact that when this book was written, Transylvania was still an occupied territory. It was under Austro-Hungarian leadership, or overlords, if you will. And people from Transylvania spoke differently from people from Wallachia, differently from people from Moldova, and the mountain people, and there was a heavy attempt to introduce many words into the Romanian language, which failed. They're not used anymore today. So yeah, I hope you understand and appreciate the effort that I am making in assembling these videos for you. And if you don't, that's okay, because I'm doing it for myself first. My whole life's work will be based on understanding this book and its material. I had to do this regardless. That's why. No pay. Because I'm trying to abandon materialism and embrace spirituality in a way that I can address it to the world. So, everything I do now, I don't think there's going to be much money out of it because it conflicts with the ideology of what I'm doing. Alright, that concludes the scrolling through. Everyone who wants to read themselves, have a good day. Everyone who's sticking around, including my future self, here we go. The Ancient Monuments of Dacia, Chapter 3, The Ancient Pelasgian Tumuli, Ref 1. I believe this is on page 187. And now, page 187. The Neolithic populations, especially the Paleochthon current, or the Pelasgian current, people whose public and private lives was grounded in religion, had at the same time a special ritual for those deceased. In their faith that they don't entirely die and will continue to live in an eternal world, happier and more superior than the visible world, they placed in the heart of the earth the bodies of the deceased, many times in natural caverns or artificial crypts. Page 188. Alongside this great religious sentiment for those deceased, they had at the same time a moral inspiration for their prosperity on this earth. Wishing that the memory of the heroes is transmitted to future generations, they raised on top of the deceased graves enormous earth tumuli, and on top of these tumuli raised clearly, as a sign of sainthood, a column of brute stone. As such, the funerary tumuli constitute the most ancient style of ancient monuments. The burial in tumuli, or the raising of gigantic mounds on the graves of the heroes and celebrities, starts righteously in the Neolithic epoch and is continued in the Bronze epoch until late in ancient times. Before the city Troy, the poet Homer tells us, there is a tall isolated hillock which someone could surround from all parts, hillock which the people called Batiea, and the immortal gods, the grave of the heroine Morina. Ref 1 for page 189. This grand mound, which formed on the Pelasgian Trojan fields an entire hill, was, as we can see, so ancient that it reached mythical status since the times of Homer. In the middle of this vast and beautiful field of Troy, Homer also tells us there is the grandiose grave of Ilu, son of Dardan, an illustrious old man from the ancient times, and on which tumuli was raised a stone column. Ref 2. Also on this memorable field of Troy, there used to be the tumulus or grave of one of the ancient leaders of Troy, or of the old man Aesiete, and on which Tumulus, in the time of the war, polite positioned himself, son of Priam, with his troop, to observe, when the Greeks from their ships would try to make an offensive move towards Troy. Ref 3. This funerary mound was so gigantic that it constituted between Puerta Skea, which I think in English is the Skea Gate, but I'm not sure, and the sea, the tallest observation point of the Trojans. During the course of the war that the Trojans and the Greeks had, the old king Priam, based on what Homer tells us, deposited in a gold urn the ashes of his son Hector, the first hero among the Trojan heroes, and then covered the urn with a purple carpet, placed it in the grave dug in the earth's breast, placed over the whole large slabs of stone, and over it the Trojans raised the tall earth tumulus. Ref 4. Likewise, tells us the Odyssey of Homer that the Greeks, or better stated the Myrmidons, after burning the body of the hero Achilles, who was killed during the time of the Trojan War by Paris, son of Priam, deposited his remains in a gold amphora, or an urn, in the same place as his friend Patroclus, and over them raised an enormous tumulus on the shores of the Hellespont, so that this could be seen far over the seas by people that lived then, but also those that would live in the future. Ref 5. Andromache, the admirable wife of Hector. Ref 6. Having premonitions and crying. Page 190. at the same time about her fate, which would be waiting for her if her husband falls on the field of battle, expresses herself in the following way about her Pelasgian parent, Etion from the holy Thebes, who was killed by Achilles. Achilles, she says, do not rob my father of his weapons. Instead, he burned them together with his body, and over his ashes raised a mound, and the mountain nymphs planted elm trees around this burial ground. Ref 1, page 190. In Arcadia, the most ancient Pelasgian territory from the Peloponnese, was situated near the city Orchomenus. Based on what Pausania tells us, multiple mounds of accumulated stone, tumuli, which were raised in the honor of the people that fell during the war, yet there exists no inscriptions, says Pausania, and the locals from Orchomen no longer have any traditions about who the war was with. Ref 2. Near the old city Delphi, close to Parnas, based on what Pausania also tells us, there was still visible in his epoch the stone mounds in which was buried Laius, the legendary king of Thebes, and his servant, both killed by Oedip. Ref 3. The same religious rite of raising giant tumuli on the graves of kings and heroes was continued by the Pelasgian tribes even after passing into Italy. For our ancestors, writes Servius, was the cultural practice that the nobles would be buried under tall mountains, or grand mounds, or in the breast of the mountains. Ref 4. Page 191. The grand grave of earth of the old king Dacian, which I think might be Dardanus, but I'm not sure, from Laurentum, formed, based on what Virgil tells us, a tall mountain covered with oak trees that provided great shade. Ref 1 for page 191. On the shore between Alba and Rome, tells us the historian Livy, it was visible. Ref 2. It was visible even in his epoch, the mounds in which the brothers Curiati and Horati were buried. And in the southern part of Rome, near Porta Ostienses, a traveler sees even today the Grand Pyramid of Cestius, one of the most important monuments of Rome, and which has been preserved fully until today. It still exists, just so you know. This pyramid consists of an enormous sharpened tumuli, tall of 155 legs, which is 121 feet tall, and having 4 faces covered with rectangular slabs of white marble. Still the most magnificent funerary mound from Rome was the mausoleum of the Emperor Augustus, which was specifically considered as a descendant of the old Trojan families. This imposing monument, built in the second year of the Christian era, was based on what Strabo tells us, Ref 3, an enormous tumulus of earth raised on the field of Mars near the shores of the Tiber River. Underneath there is a vault of white stone, and above this tumulus was covered until the top with green arbors. At the peak of this funerary mound is raised the bronze statue of Emperor Augustus, and beneath it there used to be his skeletal remains of his relatives and house people. The particular characteristic of the heroic Pelasgian tumuli was that they have enormous dimensions. Ref 4. The Pelasgians appear in traditions and in monuments as people passionate about glory. Rev 5. Their ambition was to leave colossal graves and their memory to be celebrated in songs of future generations. Rev 6. To know that after death people celebrate true glory was the greatest happiness for a hero from the Pelasgian epoch. Rev 7. Page 192. In the Pelasgian tumuli, the bodies of the deceased celebrities were deposited in gold urns, and near the urns their weapons and a multitude of precious gifts, through thesauruses. The Pelasgians are the wealthy people of the old world. Rev 1, page 192. They have enormous quantities of gold and brass. Rev 2. And at the same time of countless herds of sheep. Rev 3, of herds of giant bulls, Rev 4, and great stables of wonderful horses, Rev 5. The Pelasgians are able to purchase the freedom of a prisoner of war with infinitely great costs, Rev 6. The city Mycenae of the Pelasgians from the Peloponnesus is the city wealthy in gold, Rev 7. Before all the people, Pelasgian Troy was the leader in wealth of gold and brass or copper, Rev 8, and the Greeks hoped that after conquering Troy to return home with all their ships full of gold and brass or copper, Rev 9. Dardan, which might be Dardanus, the patriarch of the Trojans and the Romans, was based on legends, the most wealthy of all mortals in his world. Rev 10, sorry. In the ruins of the cities and the Pelasgian burial grounds, archaeology finds today the most precious vases, gold and silver ornaments, and which reveals to us at the same time the great wealth of these people. Another particular characteristic of the old Pelasgian tumuli was that they were made of earth, Rev 11, a ritual which we see is closely tied to their old religious beliefs, that the originators of the Pelasgian race were born straight out of the ground. On the tops of the Pelasgian funerary mounds is usually placed a stone column. This, says Homer, is the honor of the dead. Rev 12. The same practice of honoring the memory of the fallen heroes through enormous earth tumuli we see existed in a faraway epoch also on the lands of ancient Dacia. In almost every county of Romania there is one or more funerary mounds, page 193, of colossal dimensions and which carried the name of Movila Mare, which means great mound, or Magura Mare, which means great hillock. Rev 1 for page 193. If these sepulchre monuments of our countries appear before us even today in such giant forms, we can formulate an idea about their aspects thousands of years ago, when they were not minimized or settled by the tooth of time, nor by the economic actions of the Romanian farmer, nor by treasure hunters. These mounds, settled by the Pelasgian ritual on fields, near the roads, or on the hilltops, can be seen, in general, from great distances, just like was the idea in the Trojan times, so that they can be seen from far, page 194, from far away, as much by the people that lived then and also by future generations. The majority of these grand mounds of our countries contain, after the traditions of the Romanian people, priceless thesauruses. Some bear even today the name of Movila Comoarei, which means the treasure mound, or Movila Zapata, or the Dug Mound. However, today, this uncounted multitude of funerary monticules, which means small mountain or hill, of our countries are only some muted monuments of faraway times. Ref 1 for page 194. Page 195. We don't know the names of the heroes whose ashes or skeletons were deposited in these archaic graves, nor the events to which they participated. These tumuli only tell us this much, that in great part they belong to the ceremonies and honorary Pelasgian funeraries, and that these lands formed, page 196, in ancient times a nation of the Pelasgian people, whom solely had these types of monuments. Even today, some of these imposing monuments of earth of our countries bears the ethnic name of Tursanilor, Ref 1. I did some research on that. It might mean Etruscans, but I'm not sure. So, ethnic name of Tursanilor or the Pelasgians and other names based upon different ideas and traditions of the locals are considered graves of giants, Ref 2. In other words, those of a powerful race of humans which in ancient times lived in these countries, Ref 3. Still in the Greek antiquity, the Pelasgians were the people whose traditions and poets labeled the name of giants. To them belongs the gigantic tumuli and titanic constructions of enormous stone. To them is attributed special individual physical strength and a great warrior value. Achilles, one of the Pelasgian dukes from the north parts of Greece, bears, according to Homer, the name of Gigant or giant. His lance was so great that no Acheo, which I think means Achaean, could vibrate it. Ref 4. Hector, the Pelasgian Trojan hero, likewise bears the epithet, which is a Greek word, and Ref 5. Aenea, which might be Aeneas, the Duke of the Dardans, in his fight against Achilles, catches and lifts with his hand a stone boulder which two people from the epoch of Homer could not transport. Ref 6. Page 197. Marte, or Mars, the Pelasgian god, protector of the Trojans, and whose residence was situated in the countries of the lower Danube, has for Homer the name giant, and then a Greek word, Ref 1, for page 197. When this god of the Nordic countries vociferates, his shouts sounded like the voice of 10,000 people during war, Rev 2, and when he falls to the ground hit by a rock by the goddess Athena, his body covers an area of 7 jugerum, Ref 3. As a personal note, I did the math what a jugerum is and how much 7 would imply. 1 jugerum is 232 feet length by 116.5 feet width. So 7 jugera would be 1,630 feet length by 815 feet width, which by comparison is like, I believe, the Empire State Building. That was the size of Mars. I'll analyze that later. To continue. Even though in great part the traditions of the massive mounds of Dacia died out, just like they died out about the heroic tumuli from Troy, still these ancient burial grounds of our countries once had a particular religious history. Still in the epoch of Homer and of Hesiod there was maintained in the Greek lands different legends about the happy countries of the Pelasgians from the north of Thrace, or the lower Danube, where there was situated the most righteous people, and where they had a peaceful life full of all pleasures. The different Pelasgian tribes, which over the course of multiple hundreds of years living from the breast of the Carpathians, flooded all the less fertile lands of Greece and Asia Minor, kept until much later times the memory of their ancestors from the north of the lower Danube, and at the same time the memory of that country, which was characterized through an exuberant fertility and other different natural resources, and where the cultural habits and sentiments of justice of the people became legendary. This is where the glory of the ancient meridional Pelasgian families is reduced to. Here is where the holy burial grounds of their ancestors was. Now, if you believe in reincarnation and you just read this, you'll ask yourself, who exhibits such qualities today? Well, keep in mind, I am doing all this for free. I'm trying to restore the truth about reality. If you believe in reincarnation like I do, doesn't that imply that my soul is one of these people's souls? That I am formerly a Pelagian? You figure it out. Here's where the holy burial grounds of their ancestors was. Here was the locations of those beautiful and happy places named Greek words or the Elysian Fields. I used to believe Elysian Fields was in Greece. Apparently it was just north of the lower Danube, where at old age the heroes of the old world retreated, and where the favorites of the gods lived the golden age and an eternal life. As such, Proteus says the words Menelaus in the Odyssey. In regards to you, O divine Menelaus, the destiny of your fate is that you will not die in Argos, and that the immortal gods will send you to the Elysian plains from the edges of the earth, where people live a very easy life, without hardships, where there is no snow, nor long winters, nor heavy rainfalls, and where Zephyri, or the light warm winds, blow constantly to revive people. Ref. 4. Page 198. Hesiod, likewise in his epic poem, Greek words, reminds us as the last resound of the divine generation of the heroes from the ancient times, spread out over the entire immense surface of the globe. Pay attention. Worldwide civilization. Heroes, of which some died in the war of Thebes, and others traveling far over the sea fell at Troy because of Helen. To these, says Hesiod, Jove, who is Jove or Jupiter, son of Saturn, destined their homes in the happy islands from the edge of the earth, where they live a life without worries, and where the earth 3 times blossoms and 3 times produces sweet fruits. Ref 1, page 198. The old ones never doubted the real terrestrial existence of the field named Elysium. Hesiod, just like Homer, knew himself of this happy land and inhabited by people, but which he reduces only to the islands named Fericicilor, which I think means Fortunate Islands, Macaron, situated at the lower Danube. Ref 2. Still, what were the edges of the earth which Homer and Hesiod speaks of here? They were the edges of the Greek horizon, which you will have the opportunity to be convinced of many times during the course of this history. As a side note here, this right here is why the Carpathians were the Hyperborean mountains, because the Greeks came up with the word Hyperborea and Hyperborean, and to them their horizon, the Greek horizon, was the end of the world. So what is at the end of their horizon? Carpathian Mountains. To continue. Still in the Homer and Hesiod epochs, the knowledge of territories of the Greek authors ends at the north of Thrace. What I just said. Homer knows in northern Mysia, or in our countries, only two ethnic groups with pure cultural ideologies, the Agavi and the Abi, the most just people of all the mortals, as the man says, Rev 3. Even in the times of Herodot, the geographic darkness starts immediately to the north of the lower Danube. What kind of people live at the north of Thrace? Says this author. No one can say for sure. It seems that beyond the Istru, or the Danube, is an abandoned country and infinite. The inhabitants of Thracia also say, the lands above the Istru or the Danube are occupied by bees, and because of these people cannot travel further. Rev 4. A country occupied by bees, what fully, page 199, confirms in full the Hesiodic tradition, where the land 3 times blossoms per year and 3 times produces sweet fruits. Ref 1 for page 199. Here were the edges of the earth, or better stated, of the known world by Homer. Here were the happy lands and the just people of the Greek legends. Here was the holy land of the burial grounds of the anti-Homeric Pelasgian heroes. Here, finally, based on the old Pelasgian Greek traditions, was brought and buried the ashes of Achilles, of Patroclus, of the two Aiaci, which might mean Ajax, and of Antiloch, who I don't know who that is, Rev 2, so that the souls of these heroes can be happy here of an eternal happiness. And that concludes the regular text for chapter 3. On to the references. They're just as important as the actual text. References. Credibility, right? Anyone can talk, but anyone that can find supporting claims to prove their point, that person's legit. If you recall, the very title of chapter 3 was Ref 1. So, Ref 1 on page 187. Funerary mounds bear different names for the Romanian nation, and I am giving you now all these Romanian words which mean funerary mounds. First is morminte, then movile, gorgane, culmi, holumpuri, silitre, popine, gruie or grunie, and gruyete. The word gorgan we find used in deep antiquity not only in Europe but also in different parts of Asia as a generic denomination for certain hills or mountains. In Homer's Iliad, the tallest peak of Mount Ida near Troy was named Gargaron, and then the ref from the Iliad. And based on the results found in the text of this poem, all peaks from Mount Ida together with Gargaron were not covered by forests. Another mountain from the meridional parts of Italy, or Apulia, still bared in the Roman antiquity the name of Garganus, and this is according to the Aeneid by Virgil, the Odyssey, I think it's Odyssey by Horace, and the book by Pliny. Page 188. Likewise, we find the name Gorgan applied in Romania and Transylvania at an infinite multitude of knolls, hills, and mountains. In the medieval documents of Hungary, the word Gorgan appears oftentimes under the form Kurkan with a K and Korhan also with a K. And this is according to some manual, the Code Andegav, whatever, and also according to Pesti in his book. The fundamental sense of this word, so much based on the indications given to us by the Iliad of Homer, and also based on the mode this word is used by the Romanian people, seems to be heightened earth in the shape of the dome of a dome, or in a conical form of big proportions and not covered by forests. So in other words, think Native American Earthman. It's the same thing, except different continent. Trippy, right? I'll analyze that in the analysis video. Excuse me. With the understanding of funerary mound, the geographic zone of the word Gorgan is likewise very expanded. In France, some sepulchral tumuli from the Neolithic epoch bears even today the name Kerugant, Kergonfals, and a dolmen, which is a megalithic tomb, is named Kerkono. This is according to Bertrand in his book. In Ireland, the ancient regal cemetery was named Cruachan, according to Ferguson in his book. Even today in the French language, the word Gal means a mound of stone and of earth, and these Galgale are believed to be ancient graves raised in the memory of the Gaul and Roman warriors fallen during war. And this is according to Littre in his book, or text, and Bertrand in his book. The origin of the word Gorgan as such belongs to the ancient times or the Pelasgian epoch. In Transylvania, especially in Banat, funerary mounds are also named Gruye or Grunie, singular Gruyu or Gruniu, denomination which is likewise reduced to ancient times. On the territory of Aeolus, on the shores of Asia Minor, and where there used to be once an innumerable multitude of Pelasgian funerary mounds, we find a city named Grinium, and there's a Greek word which reads Grunion. And this is according to Strabo in his book. The same city appears at Herodot with the plural Pelasgian form of some Greek word. And Corneliu Nepos, in his book, remembers Castrum Grunium from Phrygia, which is in Asia Minor, probably identical with the locality mentioned above. As a as a corresponding form for Gruyu or Gruniu, with the understanding of funerary tumulus, we find in ancient Latin the word grumus, and it's taken from a Latin quote. I'm just going to say it for entertainment purposes. Hospes resiste ad hoc ad grumum ad laevam aspice bei continentur ossa hominis boni misericordis amantis pauperis. Inscription from Rome. In Basarabia, which is mostly Moldova today, funerary mounds are also named Kulm, singular Kulm, and in Bihor County, Holumpur, singular Holump. That's actually very interesting because it looks like 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 a composite of two English words today, like hollow lump, holumpur, holump, hollow lump, hollow lumps, which makes sense. Wild guess. Page 189. There are 6 references. First one is Homer and the Iliad. Second, third, fourth, and sixth, also the Iliad, and fifth, Iliad, but also fifth is the Odyssey as well. Page 190, Ref 1. The habit of planting elm trees around funerary mounds once also existed in the parts of Dacia. As such, after a Romanian ballad of the hero Toma Alimos, having the premonition he is dying, he addressed towards his roan, which from what I recall means horse or cow, one of those two, with the following words, might be donkey. And I did my best to try to translate this poem, but again, the poems themselves are a very rustic style of Romanian dialogue. It's hard to understand. Here I go. Hurry up, run, run, and with the thought take me on the horizon of those elm trees at the Gropana, which might mean pits, because Groapa means pit, with 5 elm trees, because I, Murgule, I don't know what that is, will die. On you I will no longer jump. From the coffin make me dig, near the elm trees make me a hole, and with the teeth grab me, throw me in the crypt. So he's pretty much talking to his companion animal which he rides to take him to this pit which will become his grave or something. But I guess the point of this poem by Alexandri here is to point out that elm trees are planted around funerary mounds. A mound on the territory of Doicești commune, Brăila County, likewise bears the name Ulm, or elm tree. And this is according to Frunzescu in his book. And the mound is on the territory of Buzău County. Ref 2. Pausanias in his book, and also Homer in the Iliad, recalled the grave of the king Epit from Arcadia. And Pausanias writes about this mound. I went and studied with my full attention the grave of Epit, of which Homer reminds us in his folklore songs. It is a mound of earth not very big, surrounded on all sides by a parapet, which means low wall, of stones. Third ref, also Pausanias in his book. Fourth ref, Servius in his book. And also Isidori in his book. Page 191, ref 1, Virgili in his book. Ref 2, Livy in his book. Ref 3, Strabonis in his book. Ref 4, Virgili in his book. 5 and 6 are the Iliad, and Ref 7 is the Odyssey. Page 192, all references 1 through 12 are from the Iliad. For Ref 12, it's also from the Odyssey. Homer, obviously. So Homer's poems to me have become the most accurate historical accounts of early times prior to Herodotus. I will analyze this in the analysis video further. It seems he does not lie. It's historical accounts in poetic form. Page 193, Ref 1. One of the most giant funerary mounds, and we can say at the same time one of the most ancient of our country, is the artificial hill named Rabaya on the territory of the commune Răsești, Falciu County, situated on the right shore of the Prut River. About this mound writes the prince. Okay, prince may not be entirely accurate. He used to be known as Principele Dimitrie Cantemir. But if you go to Wikipedia, it says Prince Dimitrie Cantemir, his official title in Moldova or whatever, which is questionable. Anyways, he writes a paragraph in Latin from his book, which translates to a description of Moldavia. I am hoping I can find a Romanian or English version of this book. This man seems to have been someone very influential in Romanian Moldovan history. Anyways, based on other traditions, this mound, which is 59 feet by 75 feet tall, based on what we are told, was made in the time of the Poedie, which he says is many people, and that in it is buried the daughter of an emperor or the heroine who fell in battle on that hill. We don't know if at this mound or another near the Nistru, which is a river, the reference is made in the following verses of a Romanian ballad. Again, this is my rough translation. Who stays posted, who arrives and stays at the mound so big, which rises on the border. And this is a poem from Basarabia in the 18th century. About an ancient mound near the Nistru, Herodot also speaks in his book. The governor Grigorie Urechia likewise reminds about a great mound near the Siret River, and over there above the Siret River at the great mound of the Tecuciului, which is near the commune Ionasești, they rested 3 days Stefan the Great, according to Cogalnicianu in his book. The deceased Odobescu, member of the Romanian Academy, published 2 works about the funerary mounds from the counties Dorohoiu and Romanați, according to his book. Still, his measurements in regards to the height and perimeter of these mounds, gathered from village teachers, have in great part mistakes, and because of this reason I was unable to utilize this material. This sentence right here just goes to show just how genuine Densusianu was. He demonstrates he did field work himself and only used the most accurate references. Great man. Great man. Page 194. First reference. Romania is one of the richest countries in funerary tumuli. At us, writes Caesar Boliak, the country is full of these mounds and little mounds from the shores of the Danube up to the peaks of the Carpathians. And these mounds and little mounds number in the 10,000s, with the hundreds and thousands, and all contain bones of a skeleton, if not more than one. And this was published in some national magazines. Now, as I've said, I am going to the Romanian mountains to go on expeditions to try to find signs of these Pelasgians. If you recall from reading the main body of this chapter, the Pelasgians were wealthy in gold. And when they were buried in like gold urns or gold personal possessions, if you will. Now here it says these mounds number in the 10,000s. How many of these mounds might actually have gold treasures at the very center of them? Because if they all have something, do you realize just how much untapped wealth in the mountains and hills of Romania there is to this day? I hope I'll find some of that. Gotta bring attention to Romania somehow, right? What better than gold artifacts? Anywho, to continue. Likewise, the archaeologist Romer from Hungary expresses himself. If there is any country rich in these types of monuments or tumuli, then for certain it is Hungary. He wrote this in his book. Just so you know, the Carpathians go up to Hungary. Or is it down? What? Is it Ukraine? Scratch that, I'm confused. I'll take a look in the analysis. It is incontestable that not all tumuli from our countries, Dacia, can be reported to one and the same epoch. Like in all European countries, same with us, some of the funerary mounds belong without doubt to the stone epoch, and others to posterior, prehistoric, or historic. As such, Caesar Bolliac tells us that in two mounds that he sliced, he found a corpse in a seated position with the spinal cord in a vertical line, character of the Neolithic epoch. And this was published in another magazine. Likewise, it was established the existence of Neolithic tumuli and in Bukovina at the commune Horodnicul de Jos, according to Kindle in his book. In general, we can say that those funerary mounds belong to ancient times, which is characterized through their considerable dimensions, their conical figure, through their alignment in lines more or less straight alongside the roads. In these ancient tumuli, many times the bones, or the urn with ashes of the deceased, are found in a coffin formed of brute slabs, usually four, over which there is placed another slab as a cover or roof. Around the urn with ashes in these coffins there are also found pieces of flint or pre-worked marble in the form of a chisel, and what I believe he meant to say is pieces of thick pottery. About these types of graves we are told from Borleș Commune or Neamțu County and from Sotanga Commune or Dâmbovița County. I guess it was some conference, but also according to Romer and his book. The interesting part about this coffin formed of brute slabs, usually four, if you look at a lot of the coffins from the Egyptian pyramids, it's usually brute slabs, usually four, of stone, but it's very special stone. Anywho, in Transylvania, the funerary tumuli are found in different parts, still in considerable numbers. They present themselves in the counties near Tisa, Ung, Zabolz, Bereg, Bihor, Bex, Cionghrad, Cenade, Hives, Arad, and Timișoara, according to Romer and his book. At these mounds near the Tisa River, the following fragment is mentioned from a folklore song in Transylvania. Again, my rough translation. Murgule, which I still don't know what it means. Don't mound, pull me from the hill already. Pull me all the way to the Tisa, because there is the expanded camp, and there under the small beeches, which are trees, there are graves of the stout who left from around here. And this is according to a poem by Yarnik Barsan in his book, page 195. In Basarabia, which is mostly Moldova today, the number of the funerary mounds is likewise quite considerable, and a memory for sure ancient about these tumuli we find our heroic poems. Again, my rough translation. On the field of the Tinekie, or Tigine, on the horizon of the field, the Kosta sheep went and placed their stonila, which I think might mean their wool furs, their coats, over all the mounds. And this is according to poems by Alexandri and also ballads by Negoescu. Up on the shores of the Nistru, on the land of the Turk, there on the horizon of those mounds, at the hall with 5 elm trees. Another poem by Alexandri in his book. And in a Konakaria, which is a wedding speech from the Romanians across the Nistru. We started our trip towards the center of the sky, on the signs of the earth, on the horizon of the mounds. And this is based on a trip that the author Cherson took through the countryside of Moldova and what he heard. In regards to the tumuli from Meridional Russia, the committee member Uvarov writes the following. It's a French paragraph from his book. I wish I knew what he said. In Bulgaria, Kanitz tells us in his book, the tumuli are found on both sides of the Balkans, or the mountain range of the Balkans, especially in the valleys of the rivers Ozma, Yantra, and Tunza. Specifically, the tumuli that are memorable are placed in regulated distances on the shores of the Danube, between Sistov and Nikopol, from Rushchuk until Samovoda, near Yantre. Kanitz counted 40 tumuli on both sides of the road. And about the tumuli from Macedonia and Thessaly, we find the following notes from Boe, again in French, in his book. I wish I knew. But before I continue, I just want to clarify right here, one more time. Kanitz counted 40 tumuli on both sides of the road. So in other words, these tumuli were planted in rows, one after the other, and perhaps parallel to each other, 2 rows. Which, if you really think about it, if there are some massive ones, some massive mounds, they could potentially have become mountain tops over time. How would that happen? Analysis video. Page 196. Just 1 second. Let me have a drink. Examining the distribution and geographical direction of the funerary mounds from the sunrise areas of Dacia, the following fact is established: that the principal line of these ancient monuments extending from meridional Russia towards Dacia extends over Bessarabia, Moldova, Romanian country, over the sunrise section of the Balkan Peninsula, also over the sunset coastline of Asia Minor, and another smaller branch of these lines of tumuli leaving from the Nistru goes straight towards Bukovina and eastern Galicia, which is modern day Poland. And this is according to some archives. I'm not sure what the author is. Ref 1 on page 196. As such, a man from Romanats County on the territory of Marotinul de Jos commune, 8 stinjin tall, I didn't measure how tall that is, bears the name Grindul Tursanului. And this is in Sambuk. Another from Valcha County on the territory of Baltan commune is named Turtan, and where there is found pieces of clay vases of ancient fabrication. And this is according to Nicolae Densusianu. Answers he gave a show, a meeting, a newspaper, I don't know. It's titled Questionarul Istoric, or the Historic Questioner. Ref 2. Especially in the counties Roman, Neamțu, and Dorohoi. Ref 3. In the commune Solnoc, Dobaca, found over the Carpathians, the folk tradition is that the stone instruments are remnants from the giants. This is according to the archaeologist Erte Sito. Ref 4, Ref 5, and Ref 6 come from the Iliad. Page 197. Ref 1 and Ref 2 and Ref 3 are from the Iliad. For Ref 3, it says, based on the traditions of the Arcadian Pelasgians, the legendary patriarch of the Pelasgian bloodline beat all other men through his size, power, beauty, and gifts of his spirit, according to Pausanias. I really gotta read this. I gotta see who this father or patriarch of the Pelasgian bloodline is. Yeah, I definitely gotta read that. Ref 4 is from the Odyssey about the geographic reality of the ancient Pelasgian Elysium, just like about its location to the north of the lower Danube, in the western parts of actual Romania, 100 years ago. We'll speak in large part during the course of this book. Page 198. Ref 1 is according to Hesiod and his Opera Edis. Ref 2 is Avieni and his book. Also Pliny and his book. Ref 3 is the Iliad. Ref 4 is Herodoti in his book. He says, this historic tradition of Herodot is based on an actual fact. Even up to 200 years ago, one of the most important writings of the Romanian countries for the Egyptians, Venetians, and Ragushani, which might mean Sicilians, was the work of that guy, Prince Dimitri Cantemir. At the same time, the Prince Cantemir, speaking about the beekeeping culture of Moldova, adds that the inhabitants of this country could, page 199, have had a much more significant role in this branch of the economy, because the plains are full of the most chosen flowers, and then on another note, the forests still offer abundant material for wax and honey, but through the laws of the country it was stopped, so that no one has more beehives than one's property can handle, so that the multitude of beehives does not bother one's neighbors. Specifically the honeycombs, the author tells us, The Moldavian bees produce a kind of black wax, but with a very pleasant smell, in which they use only for blocking the sunlight from entering their homes. And this is found in Ibid, page 33. Likewise writes Rogușanu, which might mean Sicilian, not sure, Rajkevich, in the last century, that one of the most precious and expansive productions of the Romanian provinces was the culture of the bees. And I think it's called epiculture or apiculture. I'll have to analyze that too. To complete these facts, we add that multiple islands from the Danube, just like different villages, communes, isolated locations, hills, peaks, mountain tops, and valleys on the territory of Romania bears even today the name of Albina, which means bee in English, Albinari, Prisaca, Prisacan, Praceni, Stupi, which is plural for beehives in Romanian, Stuparia, Stupina, Stupine, Stubeiu, and Stubeien. All these names are related to bees somehow. Rightfully remnants of an extensive apiculture, which means beekeeping, of our countries in ancient times. And this is to be seen, the Great Geographic Dictionary of Romania. I wonder if it still exists. Also from Frundescu. And apparently this is in a topographic dictionary, topographic and statistical dictionary of Romania. I don't know what year though. Likewise, there is a mention in Itinerarium by Antonini Augusti in his book about a location named Apiaria or Stupini, situated on the east of Transmarisca, I don't know where that is, on the right shores of the Danube. Finally, we note here two of the Romanian counties named Mehedinți and Vaslui bear even today the image of the bee in their districts, I'm assuming on their emblem. Ref 1 for page 199. The fertility of the Romanian lands was legendary until our days. In this regard, Cantemir writes some Latin paragraph in his book. And George de Reherstorff also writes some passage in Latin in his book. Ref 2 is Pausania in his book. And that concludes chapter 3, which is amazing. If you understand what I just spoke about how they used to bury their dead. And the beautiful part about this is a lot of the methods employed by these Pelasgians in Europe are visible all over the world. All over the world. And I cannot wait to cover that in the analysis video. I hope you enjoyed this production. See you next time.